The planet was silent but not peaceful. The silence was heavy, broken only by the growl of creatures that moved in the shadows. The ruins of a forgotten city stood like broken teeth under a dying sky. Tall stone towers had fallen long ago, and black vines crawled over the wreckage. It was a place no one visited, a place where the weak were left to die. Inside the ruins, in a cracked stone chamber, a young alien girl sat alone. Her wrists were bound with chains of cold metal, too strong for her to break. She had tried again and again, until her skin burned and her strength left her. Now she sat on the floor, her knees pulled close to her chest, her face buried in her arms. Her eyes were large, glowing faintly in the dark, but they were full of fear. Tears slid down her cheeks as she listened to the monsters outside. Their claws scraped against the stones and their howls echoed through the corridors. They were hunting, always hunting. And she knew that sooner or later the monsters would come for her. She whispered to herself in her native tongue, words of prayer, but her voice was weak and broken. She was not a warrior. She was not strong. That was why her people had abandoned her here. To them she was useless, a burden. When the danger had come, they had fled, leaving her chained in this cursed place. She remembered their faces as they left. No regret, no guilt. Only cold eyes that told her she was not worth saving. The girl wept quietly, but the ruins were not kind to her sorrow. Every sound carried through the empty halls. Every sob seemed to invite death closer. The monster stirred. She heard the flap of wings, the slam of heavy tails, the sharp crack of claws gripping stone. She tried to make herself small to vanish, but there was nowhere to hide. Her stomach growled, but there was no food. Her lips were dry, her body weak. She had lost count of how many days she had been here. Time in the ruins had no meaning. The sun was hidden by thick black clouds, and the air itself tasted of ash and iron. She thought about surrendering. Maybe it was easier to let the monsters come. Maybe she should stop fighting and accept her fate. But even as she thought this, her body trembled. She wanted to live. Even abandoned, even forgotten, her heart cried out for life. The monsters outside grew restless. Their sounds came closer. She could hear their breath, hot and foul like burning oil. She shut her eyes, clutching her knees tighter, praying they would pass her by. But deep inside she knew. Tonight would be her last night. The ground shook with heavy footsteps. A shadow fell across the crack in the wall where a faint light slipped in. She held her breath. A massive claw scraped the stone, slow and deliberate, as if the creature enjoyed her fear. The girl's tears blurred her vision. She bit her lip until it bled, trying not to make a sound. Her chest ached from holding her breath. One sound, one movement, and the beast would find her. The scraping stopped. The silence stretched, colder than before. She opened her eyes just enough to see the doorway. A dark shape loomed there, larger than any monster she had yet seen. It was waiting, watching. Her heart pounded so hard she thought the creature would hear it. She wanted to scream, to beg, but her voice was trapped in her throat. She thought of her family, of the ones who had left her. Were they safe now? Did they ever think of her? Or had she already vanished from their memory? A low growl rumbled through the ruins. The girl shook uncontrollably. This was the end, but then something strange happened. Another sound rose in the distance. Not the cry of a monster, not the scraping of claws. It was different, sharp, steady, the sound of footsteps. The girl froze, confused. The monsters paused as well, their heads turning toward the noise. It was not the sound of prey, weak and fleeing. It was the sound of someone walking forward with purpose, with strength. The monsters hissed, unsettled. They moved back into the shadows, growling as the footsteps came closer. The girl's breath caught in her chest. Who could it be? No one came here. No one dared to enter this cursed ruin. The footsteps stopped outside her chamber. For a long moment there was only silence again. Then slowly a figure stepped into the broken light. Not a monster. Not one of her own people. A human. His face was hidden beneath dirt and scars. His clothes torn and burned, but his eyes were clear and sharp. He carried no great weapon, only a piece of metal sharpened into a blade. Yet the way he stood, calm and unafraid, made the monsters retreat further into the dark. The girl's tears froze on her cheeks. She had heard of humans before. Fragile creatures, her people had called them. Weak, short-lived, unimportant in the great galaxy. But now, as she looked at him standing there in the chamber of monsters, she felt something else. Hope. The human's eyes met hers. He looked at her chains, then at her trembling form. His voice was low but steady when he finally spoke. "Do you want to live?" The monsters hissed in the distance, but for the first time since she was abandoned, the girl did not feel alone. The girl's body froze as the words echoed in the chamber. "Do you want to live?" For a moment she thought her mind was playing tricks on her. She had been alone for so long that she sometimes heard voices in the silence. But this was no illusion. The figure stood before her, real and solid, blocking the faint light from the broken wall. The monsters shifted uneasily in the shadows. They growled, but they did not step closer. Their yellow eyes glowed, but none dared to attack. It was strange. They had no fear of her. They had no fear of her kind. Yet the sight of the human made them hesitate, as though they sensed something different. The girl opened her mouth, but no sound came. Her throat was dry, her lips cracked. She could only nod weakly, her glowing eyes fixed on him. The human stepped closer. His boots crunched on broken stone. His weapon, a simple shard of metal tied to a piece of pipe, hung loosely in his hand. Yet his steps carried weight. Not heavy like the monsters, but steady, purposeful, like someone who had decided long ago that fear was a waste of time. He crouched in front of her. His face came into view at last. His skin was pale from hunger, his cheeks hollow, but his eyes burned with a strange light. A fire she had never seen in her own people. The girl pulled back instinctively, pressing her back against the wall. Her chains rattled. The sound seemed to echo forever in the chamber. The human didn't flinch. He studied the chains, running a hand across the cold metal. His fingers were cut and scarred, calloused from long battles. "Strong," he muttered, "but not unbreakable." The girl finally found her voice. It was weak, trembling. Why are you here?" He didn't answer right away. He looked over his shoulder at the shadows where the monsters waited. Their claws scratched the stone, but they did not step forward. Only when he was sure they would not move did he turn back to her. "No one deserves to be left for them," he said simply. His words carried no poetry, no long speeches. Just truth. Her tears welled again. No one had spoken for her before. No one had stood for her. To be told she deserved saving. It was a feeling sharper than any chain. The human lifted his weapon. With a single hard strike, he slammed it against the first link. Sparks flew. The monsters hissed, stirred by the noise, but did not come closer. The girl gasped. "They will hear what they already have," he said. And then, with another strike, the chain cracked. She winced at the sound, but could not look away. His strength was not like the beasts that tore stone apart. His strength came from something else, from his refusal to give up. Blow after blow, the chain weakened. Finally, with a loud snap, the metal broke. Her wrist was free. The girl stared at her arm, barely believing it. He moved to the other chain. This one broke faster, as though the metal itself feared his will. She was free. For the first time in days, or was it weeks? She could stand. Her legs trembled, unused to walking, but she pulled herself up. The human steadied her with one hand. His grip was firm, but not cruel. "Can you walk?" She nodded, though her body wavered. A roar shook the ruins. Dust rained from the ceiling. The girl's heart nearly stopped. The monsters were gathering. They had grown tired of waiting. The human looked toward the noise, then back at her. His eyes hardened, but he did not look afraid. "Then we run." Before she could speak, he pulled her toward the broken doorway. His steps were fast but controlled, guiding her over the rubble. The girl stumbled, her body weak, but his grip never let her fall. The shadows moved. Dozens of glowing eyes opened in the dark. Claws scraped against stone. The air filled with the stench of hunger and death. The girl cried out as one of the beasts lunged from the side. Its jaws snapped inches from her head. Before she could scream, the human's blade flashed. A single strike slashed across its face, forcing it back with a howl of pain. The girl's eyes widened. She had seen soldiers fight before, but never like this. There was no panic in his movements. No wasted breath. Every strike was meant to kill or drive away. He fought not like someone trying to win glory, but like someone who refused to die. More monsters surged from the shadows. Their screeches filled the chamber, shaking the walls. The girl stumbled again, but the human placed himself between her and the beasts. His blade moved in arcs of steel and blood. The creatures hissed and snapped, but each time they drew close, his fury drove them back. The girl's chest tightened. She had thought humans were fragile. She had thought they were weak. That was what her people had always said. But as she watched this one man fight a dozen monsters in the ruins of death, she felt her beliefs shatter. At last, the monsters drew back. not defeated but unwilling to face him again. Their growls echoed in the distance as they slunk into the tunnels. The chamber fell silent once more. The girl's breath came in short gasps. Her body shook from fear and exhaustion. The human lowered his blade. He turned to her. His chest rose and fell, but his eyes were calm, steady. "They'll be back," he said. "We need to move," she swallowed, trying to find words. At last she whispered, Who are you?" The human studied her for a moment, then simply said, "Someone who doesn't leave others to die." And with that he turned, leading her into the dark tunnels where more danger surely waited. But for the first time she did not feel only fear. She felt something else, something stronger, hope. The tunnels were dark and endless, carved from stone long before the girl was born. Cold air moved through them like the breath of the dead. Every step echoed, a reminder that they were not alone. Somewhere in the black the monsters stirred. The girl's legs trembled as she tried to keep up. Her body was weak from hunger, but she forced herself forward. The human walked ahead of her, his blade in hand, his shoulders tense. He moved like someone who had walked these ruins for days. Every sound made his head tilt. Every shadow caught his eye. Behind them, a roar shook the tunnels. The girl's heart leapt to her throat. The monsters had not given up. They were hunting. The human did not turn back. He spoke without looking at her. "Stay close." She nodded, though he could not see it. Her breath came in ragged gasps. Her mind told her to stop, to collapse on the cold floor, but her heart screamed louder. She could not stop, not now. Not when freedom was so close. The passage opened into a wider chamber. Broken statues lay in pieces, faces carved in stone staring sightlessly at the ceiling. The human slowed. His eyes scanned the walls, the exits, the shadows. "They will come through here," he muttered. The girl clutched her arms around herself. "We cannot fight them all." He glanced back at her, a faint smile on his scarred face. "We don't have to. We just need to be faster." Before she could answer, the sound came again, claws on stone, heavy bodies moving in the dark. The girl froze, terror locking her in place. Dozens of glowing eyes appeared in the tunnels around them. The monsters were closing in. The human's voice cut through her fear. "Run," she obeyed. Her feet stumbled at first, but then she pushed herself harder, driven by the growls that filled the chamber. The human ran beside her, his blade flashing at the edges of her vision. One of the creatures lunged from the left, its jaws wide. The girl screamed, but before the beast could touch her, the human struck. The blade pierced its throat. Hot blood sprang across the stone. He yanked her forward before the body hit the ground. They ran. Every corner led to another corridor, every corridor filled with echoes of pursuit. The girl's lungs burned. Her legs felt like stone. But the human never slowed. His grip on her wrist was firm, pulling her onward, forcing her body to obey when her mind begged to stop. Another beast leapt from above, dropping from the broken ceiling. Its claws reached for her. She cried out, but again the human was faster. He shoved her aside and swung upward. The blade slashed through the creature's arm, sending it crashing to the floor. He didn't waste a second. "Move!" he barked, pulling her to her feet again. The girl's chest ached. Her vision blurred with tears and sweat. But in the middle of her fear, she felt something new. She was not alone anymore. For the first time, someone fought for her. The tunnel split into two paths. The human stopped just long enough to study them. The growls grew louder behind. He chose the right passage and pushed her forward. The floor sloped downward, the air colder, damp with the smell of water. Their steps splashed into shallow pools. The girl nearly fell, but the human caught her, steadying her with one arm. "Focus," he said. "Breathe." One step at a time, she nodded, forcing herself to listen. Step by step, she moved forward, but the monsters did not stop. Their roar shook the walls. Stones crumbled from the ceiling, dust filling the air. The girl coughed, her chest tightening. Ahead, a faint light appeared. Her heart leapt. The exit? The human's jaw tightened. Not yet, but close. The light grew brighter as they ran. The tunnel opened into a massive cavern. Water dripped from above, glowing crystals casting pale light on the walls. For a moment, the beauty stunned her. She had forgotten that such things could exist in this cursed place. Her wonder shattered when another roar shook the cavern. From the shadows, a shape larger than the others stepped forward. Its body was massive, its eyes burning red. Its roar shook the crystals, sending shards tumbling to the ground. The girl froze. "The beast." "The leader." The human placed himself in front of her. His blade rose, his body tense. He did not run. He did not hide. He stood his ground. The monster stepped closer, claws tearing the stone. Its growl rolled through the cavern, a promise of death. The girl's legs gave out. She sank to the floor, shaking. We cannot fight that." The human looked at her, his eyes steady, his voice calm. "Then we don't fight. We survive." Before she could ask what he meant, he moved. His hand grabbed a loose shard of crystal from the ground. With a strong throw, he hurled it at the ceiling above the beast. The cavern trembled. Cracks spread across the stone. The beast roared in fury as rocks and crystals rained down on its body. The ground shook as debris buried it in a storm of stone. The girl gasped, staring in shock. Dust filled the cavern. The monster's cries muffled beneath the collapse. The human grabbed her hand again. "Now we run." He pulled her toward another tunnel on the far side of the cavern. The girl stumbled after him, her heart racing. Behind them, the beast roared again, breaking free from the rubble. The chase was not over, but as she ran, clutching his hand, she felt something she had never felt before. In the heart of fear, in the middle of death, she felt the spark of hope burn brighter. For the first time, she believed she might live. The cavern shook long after they had escaped into the new tunnel. Dust still clung to the girl's skin. Her lungs burned with every breath, and her heart refused to calm. Behind them, the roar of the great beast echoed again, louder than before. The rocks had not stopped it. Nothing would. The human kept running, his grip strong on her wrist. His face was set, hard as stone. He did not look back. He did not need to. He already knew the beast was following. The girl stumbled, almost falling, but his arm caught her again. "Steady," he said, his voice low, controlled. Not angry, not afraid. Just steady, like everything about him. But she was afraid. Terrified. She had seen many monsters in her short life, but none like the one that now hunted them. It was not just a predator. It was a ruler. The other beasts bowed to it, moved aside when it roared. She whispered shakily, "It is the devourer. The one my people fear most. No one has ever escaped it." The human gave her a quick glance, his eyes sharp, burning in the dim light. Then it's time someone did. She wanted to believe him, but fear weighed heavier than hope. The tunnel twisted, opening into another chamber. This one was narrower, the ceiling low, the walls lined with broken carvings. Long ago, someone had built this place with care. Now only monsters used it as their hunting ground. The human slowed. His eyes swept the chamber, measuring every crack, every shadow. He placed a hand against the wall as if feeling for something. The girl, panting, tried to steady herself. Behind them, a thunderous crash shook the ground. Stones tumbled from the ceiling. The devourer was close. The girl grabbed his arm. "We must keep running," he shook his head. "Running won't be enough. It's faster than us, smarter than the rest." Her lips trembled. "Then what do we do?" He looked at the broken carvings, then at his blade, dull with blood and dust. His jaw tightened. "We fight smart. We make it bleed. Monsters don't chase prey that hurts them." Her eyes widened in shock. "You cannot fight that thing. It will tear you apart." He met her gaze, calm and steady again. "Maybe. But if we don't try, it will tear both of us apart. Do you understand?" She wanted to argue, but her voice failed. Something in his eyes silenced her. Something she did not understand. It was not madness nor foolish bravery. It was something deeper, harder. Determination carved into the soul. The ground shook again. The devourer's roar split the air, so loud the walls vibrated. Dust poured from the ceiling. The girl covered her ears, but the sound still tore into her bones. Then it appeared. The beast filled the chamber's entrance, its body scraping the stone as it forced its way through. Its scales glistened black in the faint light, its claws longer than swords. Its mouth opened, rows of jagged teeth dripping with thick saliva. Its eyes burned red, locking on them. The girl could not breathe. Her body froze, every part of her screaming to run, but her legs would not move. The human stepped forward. He placed himself between her and the monster, blade raised. His voice, steady as ever, whispered back to her, "When it comes, stay low. Wait for my word. Then run." She shook her head, tears in her eyes. "You'll die, not if you listen." He cut her off. The devourer roared and charged. The ground split under its weight. The girl screamed as the monster's claw slashed forward. But the human was faster. He rolled aside, the claw missing him by inches. Dust exploded where it struck the floor. He sprang up, slashing his blade across the beast's leg. Sparks flew where metal met scale, but the strike cut deep enough to draw dark blood. The devourer howled, shaking the chamber. The sound nearly knocked her to the ground. The human turned, shouting, "Now!" The girl, trembling, forced herself to move. She ducked low and scrambled toward the far side of the chamber as he had said. Her heart pounded as claws scraped behind her. She dared not look back. The human struck again, this time at the beast's face. His blade sliced across its eye and black blood sprayed across the floor. The devourer screamed in rage, thrashing wildly. The girl cried out as the ground split again, stones crashing from the ceiling. She stumbled, nearly crushed, but kept moving. The human dodged, ducked, always one step ahead of the monster's claws. His movements were not perfect. He bled from shallow cuts, his breaths heavy, but still he moved. Still he fought. Finally he shouted again. "Go now!" The girl ran. She ran with every bit of strength left in her body, her chains clinking with each desperate step. She reached a narrow crack in the chamber wall, small enough that only she could slip through. She turned back, her eyes wide. The human was still there, still fighting. The devourer roared, furious, blood dripping from its eye and leg. The human slashed again, buying her time. Tears blurred her vision. "Come," she cried, but he did not look at her. His eyes never left the monster. "Go!" He shouted again, his voice like steel. Her chest ached. Her legs wanted to move, to obey, but her heart screamed in protest. She could not leave him. Not after he had saved her. The devourer lunged again, shaking the ground. The human rolled, barely escaping its jaws. He struck once more, his blade cutting deep into its neck. The beast roared in agony, black blood flooding the chamber floor. For the first time it pulled back, not in defeat but in caution. The human turned then, at last, his eyes locking with hers. "Run, I'll be right behind you." She wanted to believe him. She wanted to trust. With one last look, she forced herself through the crack, her heart breaking with every step. Behind her, the devourer roared again, louder than ever. The hunt was not over. It had only just begun. The narrow crack in the wall opened into a smaller tunnel. The girl crawled through, scraping her arms against sharp stone, her breath ragged with panic. She stumbled out on the other side and collapsed against the wall, her whole body shaking. Behind her, the chamber thundered with roars. She pressed her hands over her ears, her eyes wide with terror. Every crash, every cry made her believe the human had fallen. Her chest hurt with the weight of guilt. Then, footsteps. Heavy, fast, but alive. She looked up. The human emerged from the crack, dust covering his face, blood dripping from shallow cuts on his arms. His chest rose and fell with deep breaths, but his eyes still burned with that same steady fire. She gasped in relief. You lived." He wiped the blood from his brow with the back of his hand. Not for lack of trying on its part. Her lips trembled, torn between a sob and a laugh. He had fought the devourer and survived. She had never thought such a thing possible. But before she could speak again, the ground shuddered. The devourer roared in the distance. It had not given up. The human crouched, listening to the vibrations in the stone. "It's hurt, but it won't stop. It'll track us until one of us is dead." The girl's hands shook. She wanted to ask how they could ever escape something so powerful, but instead she whispered, "Why did you not leave me? You could have run while it chased me. I would have slowed it down." His eyes flicked to her, sharp and serious. "I don't leave people behind." She shook her head, tears brimming. "But I am nothing. My people abandoned me because I was weak, worthless. Why risk your life for me?" He stared at her, silent for a long time. Then he spoke, his voice low but fierce. "Because they were wrong. You're still alive. That means you're not worthless. Weak or not, you matter, and no one deserves to be chained and left for monsters." Her chest ached at his words. No one had ever said such things to her. No one had ever looked at her and seen worth. She turned her face away, tears slipping down her cheeks. The tunnel stretched ahead, narrow and crooked. They walked in silence, the only sound their uneven footsteps and the faint growls echoing from behind. The girl's thoughts swirled like a storm. She wanted to believe him, but doubt clung to her heart. Her own people, her own family, had abandoned her without hesitation. Could a stranger truly mean his words? Could a human, a creature her people called fragile, be the one to see her differently? Her stomach growled, breaking the silence. She blushed in shame, but the human stopped, kneeling to search his torn pack. He pulled out a small strip of dried meat, hard and tough, and offered it. She stared at it, her hands trembling. "For me? Eat," he said simply. She took it slowly, biting into the rough piece. The taste was bitter, the texture like stone, but her body welcomed it. Tears filled her eyes again. She had thought she would never eat again. He leaned back against the wall, watching the shadows. His face was calm, but his body was tense, ready. Always ready. At last she spoke again, her voice soft. Do humans always help strangers? He let out a faint laugh, but it carried no humor. No, some wouldn't. Some would have left you. But me, I couldn't. Why? She asked. He looked at her, his eyes tired but firm. Because I've been left behind before, and I swore I'd never do the same to anyone else. Her breath caught. She wanted to ask more, but his gaze told her he would not say anything else. The pain behind his eyes was not something he wanted to share. The ground shook again, dust raining from the ceiling. The devourer's roars echoed closer this time. The human stood, pulling her to her feet. It's coming. We need to move. They pressed forward through the tunnel, the girl's legs weak but her heart strangely stronger. His words stayed with her. For the first time she began to wonder if maybe she was not as worthless as she had been told, but doubt still whispered in her mind. Was he protecting her only because of his vow, or because he truly believed she mattered? Could she trust him fully? Her thoughts were cut short as the tunnel opened into another cavern. This one was filled with broken machinery, strange metal constructs from an age long past. Rust covered everything, but sharp edges still gleamed in the faint light. The human's eyes scanned the wreckage, then narrowed. We'll make our stand here, her breath caught. Stand against that? He nodded. It will follow us no matter how far we run. Better to fight where the ground gives us cover. Her heart pounded. She wanted to scream, to tell him it was madness. But when she looked at his face, she saw no fear. Only resolve, and something in her shifted. Maybe she could not fight like him. Maybe she could not swing a blade. But she could help. Somehow. For the first time, she did not see herself as only a burden. For the first time, she thought she might fight too. The roars grew louder. The stones trembled. The devourer was coming. The girl stood beside the human, her hands shaking but her eyes burning with new fire. And though her trust was still fragile, still tested by fear, she whispered to herself, I will not run. Not this time. The cavern of broken machines groaned as if it remembered its ancient wars. Rusted metal lay in heaps, twisted gears and shattered weapons from a time long gone. Shadows danced across the wreckage as the faint glow of crystals above flickered. The girl stood close to the human, her body trembling, but not only with fear. A strange fire now burned inside her, small but steady. For the first time she wanted to fight, not just to survive but to stand beside him. The human tightened his grip on his makeshift blade. His eyes studied the wreckage, searching for advantage. These machines, he muttered, they'll give us cover. And weapons if we're smart. The ground shook. Dust rained from the ceiling. The roar came again, so loud the walls cracked. The devourer was near. The girl's breath came fast. It will kill us both. Not if we make it bleed enough, the human said calmly. Not if we fight together. Her heart pounded. Together. The word gave her strength. She nodded. Tell me what to do. Before he could answer, the chamber split with a deafening crash. The devourer burst through the tunnel, its massive body tearing stone apart. Its claws glowed faint red, its blood still dripping from wounds he had already given it. But the sight of its fury was worse than any nightmare. The girl almost faltered. The beast filled the cavern, its head nearly scraping the ceiling, its teeth dripping poison, its eyes locked on them with hatred. The human stepped forward, calm as stone. Now, he said, we end this. The devourer roared and charged. The human shoved the girl aside just as the monster's claw smashed down, crushing metal to powder. He rolled, coming up with his blade flashing. With a sharp strike, he cut across its leg. Black blood sprayed, sizzling against the floor. The girl scrambled to her feet, her hands shaking. She grabbed a long, broken piece of metal from the wreckage, sharp on one end. Not a weapon, but better than nothing. The human ducked another strike, slashing across its chest. But the blade was small, weak against its thick scales. The wound was shallow. The devourer howled, swinging its tail. The human was thrown across the cavern, crashing into a pile of broken gears. He groaned, but pushed himself up. The girl screamed, no. She rushed to him, but he raised a hand. Stay back. The devourer stomped forward, each step shaking the ground. Its jaws opened wide, ready to swallow him whole. The girl acted without thinking. She lifted the sharp metal and ran forward, thrusting it at the beast's side. It struck between two scales, not deep but enough to make the monster roar in fury and turn toward her. The girl froze, terror flooding her veins, the monster's burning eyes fixed on her. The human's voice cut through the chaos. "Good, now move!" He leapt back into the fight, swinging his blade at the beast's other leg. The devourer staggered, forced to defend two sides at once. The girl stumbled back, but her heart pounded with new courage. She had heard it. Even a little. She could help. The beast struck again, claws tearing the floor. The human dodged, but the edge of its strike caught his shoulder, ripping flesh. He cried out, blood staining his shirt, but still he stood. The girl screamed his name, but he only shouted, "Don't stop! Keep fighting!" She grabbed another shard of broken machine, hurling it at the monster's face. It struck its injured eye, making it howl in pain. The distraction gave the human his chance. He charged forward, climbing the pile of wreckage to leap higher. With all his strength, he drove his blade into the monster's neck. The devourer thrashed, its scream shaking the cavern, black blood pouring like a river. But the beast did not fall. It slammed itself against the walls, trying to crush him. The human clung to his weapon, teeth clenched, refusing to let go. "Now!" he shouted. "Hit it again!" The girl looked around desperately. Her eyes landed on a broken spear, old but still sharp. She seized it, her hands trembling. With a cry, she ran forward and thrust the spear deep into the beast's wounded leg. The weapon slid between the scales, piercing flesh. The devourer roared, stumbling to one knee. The human yanked his blade free and dropped to the floor. His body was bruised, bleeding, but his eyes still blazed. Again. Together they struck. Again and again, metal clashing against scale. Blood spraying the floor. The devourer howled, its strength faltering. At last, with a final cry, the human drove his blade deep into its chest. The beast convulsed, its claws scraping furrows into the stone, its roar fading into a choking growl. Then, with a crash that shook the cavern, the devourer collapsed. The ground trembled, then grew still. Silence followed, broken only by their ragged breathing. The girl fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. She stared at the massive body, hardly believing it. The monster that had haunted her people for generations lay dead before her. The human staggered, nearly falling. She rushed to his side, catching his arm. "You're hurt," he gave her a tired smile. "Not the first time. Won't be the last." She shook her head, tears dripping onto her hands. You killed it." "No one has ever—" "We killed it," he corrected. His voice was weak but firm. Together, her chest tightened. No one had ever said such words to her. No one had ever made her feel like more than nothing. The cavern grew quiet again. The other monsters, hearing their masters fall, fled into the darkness, their growls fading into silence. For the first time since she had been abandoned, there was no sound of pursuit. Only stillness. The girl looked at the human, her hand still holding his wounded arm. Her voice trembled, but her eyes shone. You saved me." He met her gaze, his face pale but steady. "No, you saved yourself. I just made sure you had the chance." Her tears fell again, but this time, they were not only from sorrow, they were from hope. The cavern was silent now. No roars, no claws scraping the stone, no shadows watching from the dark. The devourer lay still, its massive body broken, its red eyes fading into emptiness. For the first time in this cursed ruin, there was peace. The girl sat on the cold ground, her chest rising and falling with sharp breaths. Her body trembled, not from fear anymore, but from release. She had survived. Against all odds, she had lived through the nightmare her own people had declared her too weak to face. Beside her, the human leaned against a pile of rusted machines. Blood soaked his shoulder and side, his body battered, yet his eyes remained steady. He breathed hard, but there was no surrender in him. Even wounded, he carried the same fire she had seen since the moment he appeared. The girl crawled closer, her hands shaking as she pressed cloth against his wound. "You're bleeding too much." He winced but gave a faint smile. "I've had worse." Her eyes filled with tears. "You nearly died." "For me." His gaze softened. "Not for you. For both of us." "I told you I don't leave people behind." Her chest ached at his words. She lowered her head, her voice breaking. "I thought I was nothing. They all told me I was worthless. They left me here to die. But you—" She looked at him, her glowing eyes wet with tears. "You stayed." He was quiet for a moment, studying her. Then he said, firm but gentle, "Listen to me. You are not worthless. You fought beside me. You made it bleed. You helped win this fight. Weak or not, you mattered. Don't let anyone tell you different. The words pierced her heart like sunlight breaking through clouds. No one in her life had ever spoken to her that way. No one had ever seen strength in her. Not until this human. They sat in silence for a while, listening to the distant drip of water from the ceiling. The ruins that had once been a prison now felt like something else, a graveyard of fear left behind. At last the human pushed himself to his feet, unsteady but determined. He offered her his hand. We need to leave this place. There's more beyond these tunnels. There has to be. She looked at his hand, then at the shadows where she had once wept alone. Slowly she placed her trembling fingers in his. His grip was warm, steady, pulling her up. Together they walked toward the far passage. The air grew fresher as they moved, less heavy with ash and death. Faint light glowed at the tunnel's end, brighter than the weak crystals. When they emerged, the girl gasped. Above them stretched a wide sky. The black clouds still hung, but the horizon glowed with pale gold. A sun, weak but alive, pierced through the darkness. For so long she had known only shadow. The sight of light made her knees weaken. The human breathed deeply, his eyes closing for a moment. Then he looked at her. See? Not all is lost. She stared at the light, tears sliding down her cheeks. I never thought I'd see this again. He glanced around, scanning the ruins of the outer world. Broken towers, twisted forests, and far beyond, the faint outline of mountains. It won't be easy, but we'll make it. One step at a time. She turned to him, her voice soft. Why do you believe so strongly? Why do you never give up? His eyes met hers, and for the first time she saw the weight behind them. Pain, scars, and memories too heavy to speak, yet beneath all of that burned something unshakable. Because I've seen what happens when people give up, he said quietly, and I refuse to be like that. As long as we breathe, there's a chance. Her chest tightened. She nodded slowly. Then I will not give up either. The human gave a small, rare smile. Good. That's what it means to be alive. They walked together across the broken ground. The girl stumbled at times, her legs still weak, but each time he steadied her, and each time she grew stronger, her steps less uncertain. As they climbed a small ridge, the wind shifted. She looked back at the ruins behind them, the place where she had been chained, where monsters had hunted her, where she had thought her life was over. It seemed smaller now, almost distant. She whispered, more to herself than to him. I was abandoned there. But I will not be abandoned again. The human heard but said nothing. He only kept walking, his eyes on the horizon. At the top of the ridge they stopped. Before them stretched a new world. Wild, dangerous, but free. The girl's heart swelled with something she had not known in a long time. Hope. She looked at the human, her voice trembling but strong. Whatever waits ahead, we face it together. He met her gaze, steady as always. Together. The word echoed in her heart, pushing away the voices of those who had left her. She was no longer the weak, forgotten child chained in the dark. She was alive. She was walking into the light, and she was not alone. As the sun rose higher, the two figures moved forward side by side. An alien girl once abandoned, and a human who refused to let her die. And though monsters might still wait in the shadows of the world, she no longer feared them. Because now she understood what her people never had. Humans were not fragile. Humans were not weak. Humans were hope.